Welcome to Act of Kindness, the channel that reminds us how compassion, courage, and humanity can change lives forever. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and join our growing family of people who still believe in kindness. Now, let's dive into today's powerful story. The rain was pouring that night in New York City. The kind of rain that makes the whole world feel heavy. In a luxurious mansion on the Upper East Side, a powerful man sat on the edge of his daughter's hospital bed, his hands trembling, his heart shattering with every breath she took. Richard Coleman, billionaire CEO of Coleman Industries, had built an empire that spanned across continents. But now, all the power, money, and influence he'd spent his life chasing meant absolutely nothing. Because his only daughter, little Emily, was dying. She was just 7 years old, lying pale and weak, her small body fighting a rare heart condition that no doctor had been able to cure. The doctors had tried everything: surgery, medication, even experimental treatments overseas. But nothing worked, and now, they said she had less than a week. Richard's mansion was filled with people that night: doctors, nurses, bodyguards, assistants. But the house felt empty. The sound of beeping machines was the only thing breaking the silence. He looked down at Emily's fragile face, brushed her hair gently away from her forehead, and whispered, "Daddy's here, sweetheart. Please, please don't leave me." Tears welled in his eyes, but he blinked them away. He was a man used to controlling everything. But now, he couldn't even control his own heart. His ex-wife, Caroline, stood at the doorway, her face pale and cold. They'd divorced years ago, but in this moment, even she looked broken. "Richard," she said softly, "maybe we should let her rest." He turned sharply, his voice cracking. "Rest? She's dying, Caroline. I can't rest. I can't sit here and do nothing while my daughter, my only child, is slipping away." He stormed out of the room, his expensive shoes echoing on the marble floor. He felt suffocated by pain, guilt, and helplessness. He walked down to the grand living room, grabbed a glass, and poured himself a drink with shaky hands. He whispered, almost to himself, "Please, God, someone help her. I'll give anything, anything." At that very moment, standing quietly near the corner of the room, was a woman no one ever noticed. Her name was Mary. Mary had worked as a maid in the Coleman mansion for nearly 5 years. A black woman in her mid-40s, humble, quiet, and kind-hearted. She came every morning before sunrise, worked until night, and went home to her small apartment in Brooklyn. She had never spoken much to Mr. Coleman. People like him didn't see people like her. But she saw everything. She saw the loneliness behind his wealth, the emptiness behind his success, and the pain in his eyes as he watched his little girl fade away. That night, when she heard him whisper those desperate words, something inside her stirred. She hesitated, then stepped forward softly. "Sir, Mr. Coleman." He turned around sharply, surprised to hear a voice. "What is it?" I couldn't help but hear what you said," she said timidly. "About your daughter." He sighed impatiently, rubbing his temples. "What could you possibly do, Mary? The best doctors in the world can't save her." Mary swallowed, her hands trembling. "I'm not a doctor, sir. But I know someone. Someone who helped my boy when he was dying. Everyone said he wouldn't make it, but..." He looked at her with disbelief. "Some kind of miracle worker?" He scoffed. Mary nodded slowly. "Something like that. A woman from my church. She prays for the sick. I've seen her heal people who had no hope left." Richard let out a bitter laugh. "You think prayer can do what science can't? That's nonsense." Mary looked down, her eyes glistening. "I know it sounds foolish, sir. But when my son was 5, doctors said he wouldn't survive the night. That woman prayed over him, and by morning, his fever was gone. He's 17 now." Richard turned away, shaking his head. "No, I can't rely on fairy tales. I need real solutions, not superstition." Mary was about to walk away, but something in her heart told her not to. She gathered her courage, stepped closer, and said quietly, "With all due respect, sir, you said you'd give anything to save her. Sometimes, it's not money or science that saves a life. Sometimes, it's faith." Those words stopped him cold. He stood still, staring out at the rain pouring through the tall windows. Finally, he whispered, "Bring her here. If there's even a 1 in a million chance, bring her." Mary's eyes filled with hope. "Yes, sir. I'll call her right now." Within an hour, a tall elderly woman with silver-gray hair arrived at the mansion. Her name was Sister Grace. She wore a long blue coat and carried a small wooden cross in her hand. When she entered Emily's room, everyone stared. The doctors whispered among themselves, rolling their eyes. "This is ridiculous," one muttered. "We can't allow this kind of nonsense." But Richard silenced them. "If you can't help her, then let someone else try." Sister Grace approached the little girl's bed, her presence calm and warm. She placed her hand on Emily's forehead, closed her eyes, and began to pray softly. Her voice was steady, filled with peace. "Lord, you are the healer of hearts and bodies. We ask you to touch this child, to breathe life where there is weakness, to restore what is broken." The room grew still. Even the machines seemed quieter. Mary stood beside her, holding Emily's tiny hand, whispering prayers under her breath. After several minutes, Sister Grace opened her eyes and said gently, "She will rest now. Let her sleep." Richard looked confused. "That's it. That's all." Sister Grace smiled faintly. "Faith doesn't shout, Mr. Coleman. It whispers." The next morning, Richard woke up on the couch in Emily's room. The sun was rising through the curtains. He rubbed his eyes, exhausted. Then he heard something. Soft laughter. He sat up instantly. Emily was awake, sitting up in bed, her cheeks pink again, her eyes bright. "Daddy," she said weakly, "I'm hungry." He froze. For a moment, he couldn't move. Then he rushed to her side, tears flooding his eyes. "Oh my God, Emily." The doctors rushed in, shocked. They ran tests, checked her heartbeat, her breathing, everything. Her heart was strong. Her color was back. Her vitals were normal. One of the doctors shook his head in disbelief. "This is impossible. Her heart was failing just hours ago. There's no medical explanation." But Richard wasn't listening. He was holding his daughter close, sobbing with relief. "You're okay, baby. You're okay." Mary stood quietly by the door, tears streaming down her face. Sister Grace had already left, without waiting for thanks or recognition. Later that afternoon, Richard walked down to the staff quarters. For the first time in years, he went to find Mary, not as an employer, but as a man humbled by grace. When he found her polishing the hallway floor, he stopped and said softly, "Mary, thank you." She stood up quickly, nervous. "Oh, sir, you don't need to thank me. I just..." "No," he interrupted gently. "I do. You didn't just save my daughter's life. You saved me." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "All my life, I thought money could buy everything. But it couldn't buy faith. It couldn't buy kindness. You gave me something I never had, hope." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "God did it, sir. I just followed my heart." He smiled faintly. "You followed your heart when mine had forgotten how to feel." That evening, Richard called for a meeting in the grand hall. The entire staff gathered, unsure what was happening. He stood at the front, with Emily sitting in a wheelchair beside him, looking healthy and happy. "I want to tell you all something," he said. "This woman, Mary, reminded me what it means to believe. When everyone else gave up, she didn't. When I was too proud to pray, she had faith for me." He turned to Mary. "From this day forward, you're not just a maid in this house. You're family." Everyone gasped. Mary's hands trembled. "Sir, please, I don't deserve that." "You do," he said firmly. "And from now on, you'll never have to worry about money again. I'm setting up a foundation in Emily's name, to help children from poor families get medical care. And I want you to run it." Mary froze, speechless. "Me?" "Yes, you. Because no one understands compassion better than you." The room erupted into applause. Mary wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. Emily rolled her wheelchair toward her and hugged her tightly. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. From that day forward, the Coleman Foundation became one of the most respected charities in the country. Thousands of children were treated every year, their lives saved by the kindness of strangers who believed in miracles. And Richard, he was no longer just a billionaire CEO. He was a man of faith, a man who finally understood that the greatest wealth is in the heart. Every year on Emily's birthday, he invited Mary and her son to dinner at the mansion. They would laugh, pray, and remember that night when hope was nearly lost, but love refused to give up. One evening, as they sat around the table, Emily, now a teenager, looked at her father and said, "Daddy, I want to be like Mary when I grow up." He smiled, tears glistening in his eyes. "You already are, sweetheart. You already are." Because in a world where power often drowns out compassion, one woman's faith became the bridge between despair and hope. And sometimes, the people we overlook, the quiet ones, the humble ones, carry the miracles we've been searching for all along. This story isn't just about a child's healing. It's about rediscovering humanity, about realizing that kindness, faith, and love are stronger than fear, pride, or money. So remember this: you never know whose life you might save just by believing, by caring, by stepping forward when everyone else turns away. Thank you for watching Act of Kindness. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading stories that remind the world, kindness still exists. Because in the end, it's not the riches we leave behind that matter, it's the lives we touch along the way.